Good overnight, everybody, and welcome on into another episode of From Day One. Art Bell with Spooky Matter. The conclusion of the ghost stories are here. And without further ado, let's jump right in onto them with our first spooky story of the night.
New Hampshire and Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Art. How's Wells?
Thank you.
Good. Well, my story started about 23 years ago. My father had rented a house from his boss, split entry house, cathedral ceilings, beautiful place. The first night that we moved in, my first night there was actually quite bad. I started with a really bad dream of me coming up on the back porch. We had like a large deck, and I saw this old man there. And he was sitting at a table, and when he turned around, his eyes were hollowed out. They were gone.
Bad.
And, yeah, and he had his teeth were rotten. And just recalling it, actually, it makes me nervous.
Certainly the eyes go before the teeth.
Yeah. And, but not only that, though, he looked quite old. But I woke up from it. But when I woke up from it, I was wide awake, and there were these big balls of light that was zigzagging through my room, and I was terrified for it. They were like giant, people talk about like spirit orbs. I mean, this was back in the early 90s before there were any ghost shows or anything. But
Right.
there were these giant orbs. There was like with long tails zigzagging around my room. But that was just the first night, and a lot of things happened. You know, in the beginning, I didn't tell anyone because it was my parents and my brother. I was 16 years old. And it got to the point where I'd get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. Now,
I would have told everybody.
Yeah.
You're not telling anybody about this?
Well, I was 16 years old. I was scared, and I didn't know what my parents would think. We weren't very religious. My father was an atheist. And my father, he served in Vietnam. He was hard as nails, still is today. And, he just didn't believe in that stuff. Mm-hmm. And, but I get up all the way to use the bathroom. Now, on the main floor, this place was huge, big living room, a den, and then my brother's room was next to mine and adjacent to ours was my parents' room. And I'd be so afraid to get up to use the bathroom because there'd be a giant mist going down the hallway. You walk into the hallway and it was freezing cold. Really? And I would run down, the hallway was long. This place was a mansion, but it was big. And I would run into the bathroom. And while I was using the bathroom, I could hear whispering and footsteps all through the house. And I'm just summarizing it because it's a long story. And I'm still being terrorized by a lot of it today. And so is my family. But, there was one occasion, like back in the 90s for the old computers, if on the older computers when you use a program in high res, the screens would flicker. So you go out and buy one of those special screens you put on with Velcro, and they would stop the flicker on the screen. Back in the old days, it was PCs and Commodore Amigas and whatnot.
Sure, I remember.
Yeah. But I used to love to write, and I still do. And as I was using my computer, I looked up, and there was this twisted face staring over my shoulder. Mm. And, of course, this was like 11 o'clock at night. It was just, I could see the eyes even now. They were red, but they weren't, like, glowing red. They were pupils, but they were reptile-like. And I jumped out of my chair.
Most people, I would say move, but in your case, I don't think it would do a darn bit of good. Whatever it is.
Well, I eventually told my parents, and they thought I was losing my mind. And, they're like, are you sure, Mike, you're not just feeling these things up? And I said, no. Well, I finally built up enough nerve to talk to my brother. His name is Jim. Come to find out he was experiencing the same thing. Seeing the faces and the screens and seeing figures in the house. We have a furnished basement downstairs, and that's where the laundry room was. And I go downstairs and the laundry. And as I go to walk back upstairs, I hear someone whisper my name. And, of course, I start running up the stairs. Right. I start running up the stairs. When I turn around, I see this white figure with bulging eyes. I can't describe what it looks like. It wasn't so much later that I seen like these UFO documentary.
Listen, Guy, you're haunted. I mean, you are just thoroughly, completely followed and haunted. That's all there is to it. You don't bother moving. Obviously, that thing will come with you. Good heavens to Betsy, we'll be right back on Spooky Matter. There are people like that. No matter what they do, they're haunted. The wormhole yields the following. John says, I think your show is overwhelming XM internet tonight. Been trying to maintain a connection for the last 2.5 hours. Can't stay connected for over 15 minutes and trouble getting your webpage to load back on. Horrible. Sorry, John. Yes, we're aware of the troubles and we're monitoring them. And I'll have something to say about all that tonight. But yes, it's rough. We know. All right, let's... Now, let me see here. How about Washington and Craig? Hello, Craig.
Hey, I'm here.
Okay.
Bell?
Then it's your turn. Yes, it is, Mr. Bell. I'm fine.
All right. What I was going to tell you is I left the bowl out. Trick or treat. Take as many Roswells as you would like.
Thank you.
Still there?
Yes.
Hey. Well, yeah. You know, this story thread is kind of a little bit difficult to just get down in one sentence. It's got to be a few things that kind of equates around some of the history of the property that it was on. And this goes back to an area called Clarksburg, not Pennsylvania or anywhere back east. It's actually in California. It's about 14 miles from the Capitol Steps.
Okay.
UC Davis in the 1980s, 1890s, I should say. I'll tell you here about that. But formed this conglomeration about reclamation of properties that were taken over by the floodplains of the Delta. So they came in and they went with this whole invention about pumping out the water and storing up the lands. Well, these are sacred lands to the Indians of that place.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, what they did was they were able to get the pumping stations in and get this one area reclaimed, which pretty much reclaimed the whole Delta region of the Sacramento area and then down in San Joaquin.
Okay.
But this guy named John McClellan, the person that did the landscaping there in Golden Gate Park, came in and did all of the landscaping on this property, and they made this property the signature soap piece of this land.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of goes on from there, where there was something spiritual about this land to the native Americans that were occupying it and living in that area. This is something that they claimed as their own, and this is where they buried a lot of their dead. It was high ground, but it was also something near to water. And then, you have all the effluent of all the levees and dikes and things that were naturally created there. So they felt that. So it kind of comes down to where there's a lot of key players in this. I guess what we need to do is cut this short because...
We do, yes.
I know, I'm going there with you. There are a lot of people there that are involved in this, but one of the people that came into the hands of this property is a guy named Gus Sands, and this is all public record, and I can talk about this.
Just sort of tell me what happened. In other words,
you just want to get right to the story.
Yeah, the heart of the story.
Okay. Well, anyway, there was a lot of figurative things that happened in this event.
Yes.
And what we were doing is we were trying to bring this property back up to market, and we were working on it. And so,
right.
And as we were working with it, we had a lot of characters involved in it. We'll show all the threads, and maybe someday I'll write a book. Who knows? But not for tonight's listeners, okay?
Okay.
So what we're doing is, in the summers of Sacramento, they get very hot sometimes. And
yes.
So we would do the siesta thing, right down about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and get yourself a little cooled off. Now, I happen to have a waterbed at the time. I used to take the sheets off, lay on my cool bed. You know how that is.
Right.
Well, I had this event where kept having these kind of weird dreams about electricity, and I'm an electrician, so I didn't figure it was more than just my imagination. But in some of these dreams, I was being lifted up through the light socket up in the ceiling, and then I'd come away with visible marks.
Physical
So
marks. That can happen in dreams, yeah. Well, no, I exhibited them to people that saw them and thought maybe I would just scratch my leg. No, they were handprints where I could not put them on my ankle. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, those were enough things, but and there was a lot of other things that tailed into this. But I guess the most amazing thing about this whole story was that I met this gal, and she was very spiritual. As a matter of fact, she was kind of a handler for this. Okay, we're going to actually have to get to the heart of the story, the end of the story, I guess. All right, we're going to go right to it then, I guess, if you want. Yes. To me. So it happened that I was with this one particular gal. She was a runway model and was a handler for Salad Agency. And she was very spiritual, and she did a lot of healing things. And we had all that energy going. There was a lot of energy connected to this property to begin with, and which I didn't get a chance to tell you about all that. But as it turns out, like I said, I had these recurring dreams. The one night, we were resting, and then I fell asleep, and then in my dream, I was going in and out of from the bedroom to the kitchen, and the kitchen was this brightly lit, really beautifully, kind of like green, and then a checkerboard foundation at the bottom, and the lights were dimming up and down, and the gal was following behind me in my dream, but it was all well lit. It was all just like you would see it in your waking state. Okay, so, and then I kind of looked behind me. I told her, I says, wake me up, spooks are here. Because I used to refer to these guys as spooks. They used to haunt the property. So somehow I was like back in bed, and she was holding me down on the bed because she said I kept coming off the bed, levitating. And those were her words, levitating. Okay. Well, like I said, going towards the fixture in the ceiling above my bed. Well, you apparently like electricity. I guess I was an electrician. I guess I wouldn't. Okay, well, thank you, Craig, but we just sort of didn't get there. The levitating part was definitely interesting, but boy, that was a long trip. Let's go to Texas and meet Bill. Hello, Bill.
All right, what a pleasure. First off, I got to tell you, Megan Roswell's, and it is so good to hear your voice. I've loved you for years, and you're so much better than anybody else out there. Okay, I'm a doctor. I am 67 years old, and back when I was in medical school, I was an exchange student, and I went to the University of London, Middlesex Hospital. And their hospitals and their doctors and their nurses were really great, but they were a lot less, they used a lot less technology than we did. The nurses were called sisters. Mm-hmm. And in working with the patients, I had a patient ask me about a very kind, nice lady that offered her tea, and who was that person? Well, I didn't know who that was, and I asked around in the hospital, and this is something that all the hospital staff knew, but none of the patients knew, and they didn't want anybody to talk about it at all. And the story of a ghost named the Gray Lady. Mm-hmm. It turns out that patients that ended up dying right before they would die would see this apparition that they thought was a nurse, but she was dressed as the old nurses back then did, before the current ones. And I'm talking about the 70s, so even before that. And she would offer them tea, and they would be dead within 24 hours. Wow. And they told the story. Yes.
There was a story kind of like this that was actually in the mainstream press not long ago about a cat that would go and curl up next to somebody. I think it was in a nursing home. And every time this cat went to somebody, they would, within, as you point out, 24 hours or so, die.
Right. Well, I didn't read about that, but that's the kind of thing that was going on there. But they had their own theory about it. And one time they told the story, the staff there, about an apparently well patient that said, who was that really nice lady that wanted to know if I wanted tea? And this was a lady that was doing well and what? Oh, no. Yes. I see it coming. I hear it coming. Right, and she was dead within 24 hours of a pulmonary embolus, a blood clot to her lungs. And nobody thought she was going to die. So it wasn't like somebody was just going to the people that we expected to die.
I hear you.
And the theory they had about it was that this was a nurse who was taking care of people in the old days in that hospital, Middlesex Hospital. Mm-hmm. And a patient had asked her for some tea, and she forgot about it. She forgot to bring it, and the patient died. And so their theory was after she died, this was a way of making amends to try to comfort patients who were about to die. And they believed it totally. They were totally convinced of it, and they wouldn't let anybody tell it to anybody outside the circle of people that worked there.
As a doctor, how did you feel about this?
You know, I have seen so many things that you wouldn't think was possible. People live that you wouldn't think should have lived. Mm-hmm. I'm on board with it. I really am. I mean, I think there's more things out there than people know about.
Obviously so. Thank you very much. That's very interesting from a doctor. It would be interesting, wouldn't it, to hear from other physicians that I know have heard many and have seen many things that should not be possible, and yet are. Still, as a doctor, as a scientist, actually, and you can refer to a doctor, I think, as a scientist of sorts, right? Very well schooled. It's almost ingrained in them to, chuckle at this sort of thing, and yet they meet up with it. And as they do again and again and again, I wonder how it affects them. All very, very interesting. All right, let me look at the times. Obviously, Marty in California has been waiting a long time. Hi, Marty.
Hi, Art. How are you?
Fine.
I just wanted to tell you about something that happened to our family. I adopted my 3 little grandchildren, and the 10-year-old granddaughter of mine, she went over to a friend's house to spend the night, and she'd been over there a couple of times before, and it had taken her a while to go back, and I just thought maybe it was just her and the little girl maybe, had gotten into words or something. Kids do that. Anyway, she went over, and she called me the next morning, and this is a child that doesn't get excited over anything. She was, Grandma, you have to come and get me right now. And I said, what's wrong with you? And she said, you just have to come and get me. Right now, Grandma, you can't, you just stop doing anything you're doing and you come and get me. Mm-hmm. So I got in the car and I went over there. I knew it wasn't just a child thing. So I picked her up and she ran and got in the car and I left and I come home and I told her, I said, Sissy, what happened to you? And she said, nothing, Grandma. And I said, did someone hurt you or did someone scream at you? Did someone touch you? No, Grandma, I'm okay. I'm okay. And so I just let her go because I thought maybe it was just nothing. And that evening, it was about time to go to bed. She came in and she said, Grandma, I need to talk to you alone. So we went in my bedroom and she just broke down and started crying hard and shaking. And I said, what is wrong with you? And she said, Grandma, there's 2 black figures in that house over there. And she said, they're real bad. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, last night when I was asleep, she said, something was breathing in my ear. Mm-hmm. And then she said, well, and it started pulling me across the carpet and had me by my ankle. And she said, I went to the shower and the next morning, and she said that something was on the other side of the shower curtain. And she got so scared that she ran out without even drying off. And she said, Grandma, it's playing with that lady's babies. Mm-hmm. She has a little baby. So I had to make her a bed next to my bed because she just was hysterical. She was so scared and traumatized. And so the next morning I called my friend and I said, you need to come over here because we need to talk. And she came over and I told my granddaughter, I said, tell her what you told me. And she just broke down crying again. She said, there's 2 black things over there and they're playing with your baby. Mm-hmm. And my girlfriend, she completely fell apart. And so I told her she needed to ride home. And I said, well, I'll give you a ride and my granddaughter said, well, I don't want to go. I said, come on, Sissy, I'm not going to leave you alone. I'm home alone, so you go. We're not going to get out. So I drove up in the driveway, and it's kind of an upgraded driveway, upgraded, uphill a little.
Yes.
I pulled up there, and the lady got her baby, and she got out. And, you know, this lady's hysterical. She doesn't know what to do, and she's scared too. And I told her, whatever you do, don't keep the baby from them. It might make whatever it is mad. You know, and then it could really, if it's playing with the baby and not bothering it. Anyway, she got out, and all of a sudden, my 10-year-old granddaughter started kicking the back of the passenger seat. She was screaming like somebody was stabbing her. She said, "Go, Grandma, go! He's coming out the bathroom window." It was a 2-story, and I said, "Oh my God!" And she said, she just was screaming and hysterical, "Grandma, go, go, go!" So I flew out of there.
And you saw nothing?
No, I didn't see anything. I was having some kind of cardiac arrest when she was doing this because it scared me so bad.
Yeah.
And seeing her hysterical. So I flew out of the driveway, almost tore up my car, got her home. She was just hysterical for days and days. Slept next to my bed. I had to get a see-through shower curtain because she was worried about something being on the other side. I mean, it took a couple of months before she was sleeping in her own room. And
Right. I would suppose that this kind of thing would put you into a state of shock. So that, yes, you wouldn't want to be in the shower, and if you were, you'd want to be able to see out. And playing with babies? No. I think perhaps it would be interpreted by somebody as play, but it only takes once, right? Let's go to Jeff in California. Hi, Jeff.
Hello, Art. How are you?
Quite well, thank you.
Great, great. I'm a little nervous, so you'll have to bear with me a little bit. I'll try my best here.
Best thing to do is take a deep breath and just relax.
Yeah, we're not all used to being on the radio like you are. I have a ghost story that happened to me. It was back in June of 1985. A friend of mine that I grew up with had the same birthday, and I hadn't seen him for a few years. And we always tried to get together on a birthday because we had the exact same birthday. And at that time, he ended up in a little town called Lake Elsinore. And I drove out there. We got together, and we went to, I asked him, you know, if there were any old abandoned houses or anything like that to visit, because that's what we did a lot of when we were growing up. And he told me there was this great one nearby, and we went by it. It was this gigantic structure, and it was left over from like the 1920s.
All kids love abandoned houses. I spent some time in a few.
Oh, yeah, it was always fun to explore when we were kids, you know. So just kind of doing a little catching up and all of that. But when I saw this place, I was just extremely intimidated. It was just massive, you know. And he's like, "We're going to go in there tonight after dinner." And I'm like, "You got to be kidding me, you know, it's just huge." So we went and ate, and driving towards the place, we ran into a friend of his, walking down the street, told him about it, went to his place, got a crappy...
Yes, we just lost that.
Place.
Oh, you are there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did we cut off, or...?
Yeah, for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what that was.
Anyway, go ahead.
So we went through this place, and it was extremely huge. It just took hours and hours to go through every bit of this place, room after room, on and on and on. Went through there, went out the back, and trying to explain this, because we went up an outside staircase, and we're sitting next to a room up there, just at the top of the stairs, and suddenly I heard footsteps down below. And I was extremely, you know, we were all very nervous. It's like, oh my gosh, you know, who's in there? And no one said a word, and we're just sitting there, and the footsteps got closer and closer and closer and closer until they were upstairs on the level we were at, and these footsteps came right up. I had my back to a door. It was just pitch black in this room. And I mean, whatever it was walking just right up within arm's length of me. And it was just, you know, I had no idea who was there. And we just jumped up and we bolted out of this place as fast as we possibly could. You know, it was just really, shook up about that. Like, who the heck was that? Well, I went back the next day, drove out
See,
there.
now, why would you go back after that?
Well, because I just went out to visit. It was broad daylight.
Mm-hmm.
It was a
All right, so
completely
you
different
went back.
thing. Yeah, and the thing that just, really got me was that seeing in the daylight, these footsteps that I heard, and they were as plain as can be, they were in a room below us and they came upstairs. And this is, to make it quick, whatever was making those footsteps, and they were as clear as my voice is, this person, or whatever it was, went through the ceiling and went through walls, came, it was just, there was no way to go from the lower level where the footsteps started, except to come outside into this back courtyard and come up the flight of stairs at the top of which we were sitting at.
Well, ghosts can do that. I mean, they can
no kidding. But I just couldn't figure that out. Well, I stayed there the whole day. I mean, we were hanging out, and we went back to that night. I had brought a really big flashlight with me. We went through the whole place again. Nothing happened. We went out the back again, and we went out to the courtyard. We went up the same flight of stairs, back to the very same room. Went inside. It's like peering through there. There's a little bathroom. It's all broken up. I mean, this place is abandoned. It's been that way for quite some time. And then as we were peering into this bathroom with a flashlight, all of a sudden there's this loud boom noise. But it was so strange because it was like just a second before that noise, we both just sort of simultaneously jumped back a step together. And then this noise, and then these bats come flying out of this bathroom, and like, they're all, brushing through the hair and across the face and everything. But I heard these two very distinct grunting noises, very low, guttural grunt. And it was like, bats don't make that kind of noise. And in my head, I'm not telling you, so I heard a voice say, "Get out." They did not. But in my head, those words translated to that, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, it makes sense, and you should have gone immediately out. That's certainly what I would have done. California, and David.
Art, how are you?
Well, very well, thank you.
Fantastic. It's a pleasure to talk to you, especially on Halloween.
Yes, sir.
My ghost story goes back to 1988. I had just graduated high school and was working at this garden center in Pasadena, California. And it was a great place. It was, a lot of the structures on the property were back from the early 1900s. And one day I'm in one of the buildings, and about a 15 by 15 room, and I'm against one of the sides of the building, cutting up some paper, and I end up backing up into a ghost.
And how does one know you've backed up into a ghost?
Well, I felt the person behind me when I stepped back. My foot ended up on their foot, so my heel didn't touch the ground. And I felt like I pushed a body back. And I turned around. I thought it was my boss having snuck up behind me. And I turned around, and, this is a big room. And there was nothing there. And by the time I stopped running...
I don't know. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. You ran. That's what I would have done, too. When you're bumping into a body, you can feel it. It's very solid. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I literally turned around and said, "I'm sorry," and I don't think I got the word sorry out. I ended up coming back into the store. I literally ran probably a couple hundred feet out into the street and came back and talked to a couple of the employees there, and they had told me that up to 3 people had killed themselves on that site, and that just freaked me out. But,
I would say you definitely had an encounter with, I'm not going to say disembodied spirit, because it sounds like that spirit had a body. Let's go to Arizona and Barbara. Hello, Barbara.
Hi, Art.
Hi.
I'm just very thankful for your call. Very, very lucky for me to talk to you. Anyway, this happened several years ago. I was in my house here in Phoenix, Arizona, And my husband and I were, it was close to Halloween. And we were watching TV, and it was actually close to midnight. I think it might have been October 5th or something, but I'm not sure. But we were watching a show called Most Haunted. It was an English show with a girl named Yvette, and they were supposedly doing a live show in London, ghost hunting. And they were having like a seance. They were supposed to be getting in touch with Jack the Ripper at one point, and then they were doing a Ouija board. And we had all the lights in the house out. We thought it was kind of amusing, and we were kind of enjoying it. So while we were watching the show, I had to go to the bathroom. So my husband was in bed, which is actually an important point. I got up, and I went down the hall, which is like you go a short hall, and then you make a right. So I was like 2 halls away. And I shut the door, and I heard from the back of the hall that I was next to, in the back of that hall is a guest bedroom. I heard footsteps coming down the hall from that room. And they were very slow, heavy, plodding steps. And the whole house was dark. I didn't bother to turn on any lights. And I thought, why is Robert getting up? And I thought, what is he going to go feed the cat? Or because it was going towards the kitchen. But in my heart, I knew that was not my husband. I just was aware that subconsciously that those were not his walking.
Right.
The steps got closer to me. They were very slow. They sounded just like Frankenstein. Seriously. And then they went into the kitchen and stopped. And I thought, if I open this door and it's all black out there, like I'm just going to die. I opened up the door, it was all black out there.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And,
you obviously lived.
I don't know what that was. I went back down the hall. My husband's lying in bed staring at me. And I looked at him and I said, I thought I heard you walk down the hall. And he looked at me and he goes, I thought I heard you walk down the hall. But you were supposed to be in the restroom. And then I saw the light come on when you opened the door again. So we both heard it from different parts of the house.
Right. I got you. Let me tell you what I think. And it's just what I think. It's not what I know. You were watching, you said, a seance on television. You were watching somebody manipulate a Ouija board on TV. And this is just a wag, but listen. These things invite things to you. And it may well be that even on television, it does not matter. If you're watching this kind of material, or I might add, listening to a program like the one you're listening to right now, that discussion of these things invites things to you that you might not want. Just a word of warning. But even through the TV, Ouija boards, seances, no. Not good. Maybe okay tonight, but otherwise not good.
I can see her lying back in her satin dress in a room where you do.
All right. Where to go here? To Indiana and Phil. Hi, Phil.
Hi, Art. It's great to hear you on frequencies other than 80 meters.
Well, thank you.
And I want to give a shout out to the Bell Gab people who I'm very loosely affiliated with them. Thank God. My story is about a friend of mine from the 80s, back when I lived in Illinois. And we more or less lost touch with one another, as people do when they get older. And
right.
I moved to this really painfully small town called Allerton, which is literally out in the middle of nowhere. And it's a fairly short story. I was laying in bed, sleeping, minding my own business, and out of dead sleep, and I don't like to get up in the morning, so this had to be something for me. Somebody's tugging on my foot, and I thought, oh, what's this? And it was my friend David saying goodbye. And when this happened. I just kind of wrote it off as, pizza tonight, before, but I was curious. So I, got up and got ready to go to work, turn on the radio, and there's a news story that my friend David had died in a car accident about 3 miles south of where I was.
Good Lord.
Yeah, and it hit me pretty hard.
And he had been tugging on your foot, waking you up to say goodbye.
That's right. And we were very close, and I hate to bandy the word spiritual sense out there, but we weren't typical, knothead high school kids.
Yeah.
So it actually figured that he would do that, if you know what I mean.
It does. That's one hell of a story, buddy. I don't know what to tell you, but if it had happened to me, I guess first there would be horrible shock, and then I don't know. I guess you'd be at peace with it because you realize your friend did say goodbye to you. But that's rough stuff. That really is rough stuff. I wonder how many get the opportunity, to say goodbye to anybody. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. To North Carolina and Ron. Hi, Ron.
Hello, Art. Roswell to you.
Yes,
and I wanted to just give you a brief start on what happened to me. I have a best friend, and we've known each other for 30 years, and we fish a lot, and it's night fishing. And, of course, as both we were school teachers, so that meant not much day fishing. So we do a lot of night fishing, especially in the summertime. And that's how I got started listening to you each night. And I probably had the first CC Radio Plus, and I also have the Versacorder and all of this because I would have to get up early in the morning to go teach school. And so I would have your program to record every night.
I see.
Well, and so Wallace, who is my best friend, and I would go out fishing night on the weekends, and we were having to go through at that time, I think WBT in Charlotte was one of your stations.
Right.
Back then, and we would just get out there, and of course we would hear most of it. The boat would turn some way, and then a way that we would lose a little bit of the signal, and so it was just because it was coming in. Charlotte was coming in on Skip, and you know how Skip goes in and out.
I do. Comes and goes.
Sure you do. I'm a KA4 FUG for 25 years, so we know about Skip. Well, so we were fishing, and it was late at night, and I was listening to you, and he was listening to you as we fished, and you had just gotten through the section where you would give the world news and talk, maybe the first 15 minutes on the world news, and I didn't know what your next topic was going to be because we'd catch a fish and that would go over top of your topic and then so on. So we moved up this lake, and we moved up to a point where there was a creek running in, and it was running into the main body of water, and we were almost to the headwaters of the lake. And as we sit on this point, and normally that's a great place to catch fish because you got the creek coming in with fresher water, cooler water, and running into the main body of the water. Well, I was just looking around and listening to you and looking around and fishing, and looked up toward the headwaters, and I saw this what I would describe as a night light, a street light, and it was sort of pinkish. And I thought, well, who would be? This lake is so remote, Art, that there are no houses on the lake. There's nothing there. There's one boat launch, and you have to drive a 5-mile dirt road to get to it.
Right. So what did it turn out to be?
Well, this light moved, and the next time I looked at it, it was bigger. And then the next time I looked at it, it was bigger, and it started coming through the trees. And the weirdest thing, Art, as it would come through the trees, if you were to take a flashlight and walk through the trees with a flashlight, every time you went behind a tree, you wouldn't see the light. But yet this was coming through the trees, this whole forest of trees, and you could continuously see the light. And it was a ball that started out no bigger than if you were looking 3/4 of a mile away at a street light, and it got to be, as it approached us, as large as a good-sized pumpkin. And by this time, we were getting scared. I'll be honest with you. And so we turned off all our lights on the boat so as not to attract anything. And all of a sudden, this thing came, and it came out right out to the point, and the point was clear on the end. There were no trees where the point ran to the water, and it came right on off and went into the water, and that was the last we saw of it. It didn't.
Ooh, that's weird.
I turned it off for it.
That is really weird. I have no clue. That's a cross between a ghost story and a UFO story. I have no idea what that would be. Something that would grow, or very small light, bigger, 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 basketball size, and then into the water in front of you. Pretty weird stuff. Let's go to Ohio, I believe, and Debbie. Maybe not. Hold on.
How about Scott in Maryland?
Yeah, Scott in Maryland is where we are. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Art. Happy Halloween and many happy Roswells from my wife, Jessica, and her mother, Nadine, who have been fans of yours for decades.
That's the way to get those plugs in.
I met my one and only ghost in 1978 in a lighthouse in Long Island Sound. I was in the Navy. I was 20 years old. I was in submarine school in Groton, Connecticut. And through reasons that I don't remember, I came to make a friend who was in the Coast Guard and was one of the lighthouse keepers of the New London Ledge Lighthouse, which is in Long Island Sound between the north shore of Long Island and the Connecticut coastline.
Yes.
And at one point he said, hey, how about you come on out to the lighthouse for some weekend? And I said, sure, that sounds great. So I got together with a buddy and we picked up a bunch of groceries and we went across the river from Groton, where sub school is, to New London. And he picked us up in the Zodiac and took us out to the lighthouse and showed us all around, and it was great. And we're having a good time out of the lighthouse, and it's Saturday night. And there's 4 of us who are watching TV there. It's the 2 Coast Guardsmen who are on duty, and myself and my friend from sub school. And we're watching Saturday Night Live, and we hear this big bumping noise from upstairs, really, really loud. And so we go upstairs to see what it is, and we don't really see much except a bunch of free weights, like for weightlifting, you know, the big round heavy one.
Oh, yes.
Okay, they're scattered all over the floor of this room at the lighthouse that they used as an exercise room.
So that had been the noise.
That had been the noise. And my friend Jerry then says, well, yeah, there's a ghost out there. And he tells us the story of the ghost of the lighthouse. And apparently it dates back to the 1930s when civilians were lighthouse keepers. And the way the story went, according to Jerry, was that a husband and wife had been taking care of the lighthouse, and she had been fooling around on him, and he found out about it. And when he found out about it, he threw himself off the top of the lighthouse and killed him. So, okay, we thought, that's pretty interesting, and we went back downstairs to watch TV. There was a TV room. So it's a short time later, and all 4 of us are again watching TV. And we again hear this, loud thumping, noise from upstairs. Well, this time we ran upstairs. We wanted to see what the heck was going on. And we get to the exercise room, and this was the strangest thing. All of the free weights that had been scattered around the floor were stacked up in the middle of the room, with the biggest ones on the bottom, and then going all the way up to the smallest ones on the top. And they were stacked up there in the neatest stack you could imagine for free.
And so from the time you heard the noise, you ran up. It could not possibly have happened that quickly.
Well, no, and plus, all 4 of us were together, so it's not like somebody was trying to pull a fast one. And, and then, we were all kind of freaked out at the time. I was, like I said, I was like 20 at the time. And then the next day, my friend Jerry took us down to the basement of the lighthouse, and he dragged out all these old logs, all the log books from the lighthouse, from when the Coast Guard kept it and from when civilians kept it. And if you go through page after page, and over the years, there were many, many entries of people writing down entries where ghostly things had happened, and some of them were just like standard ghostly stuff, like, doors slamming and creaking noises and stuff. But the really cool ones were like entire floors would be painted, or brass would be polished, or stuff like that. And it was almost like this guy, this dead lighthouse keeper who threw himself off the top of the lighthouse, was haunting it and was trying to keep the place up to, kind of like, keep up his old duties. So
that sounds that's exactly right. And that is what occurred. And obviously it was haunted. There are haunted places, right? And isn't it interesting that he had books, logs of prior hauntings? That would be eerie, wouldn't it? Really eerie to sit down after that had happened to you and begin reading of the years of hauntings. Wild stuff. All right, Kansas Springs Joe, hi.
Hold on.
Hello? Going once.
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi there.
Hi there.
Wow, I went a little while. It's pretty cool to hear from you, Art Bell.
It's cool to hear from you, sir. Do you have a story?
Oh, I have a pretty good story. It's two stories in one, I would say. Basically, back in 2001, my father passed away. He was a big fan of yours, actually. He spent
two
years.
levels for you, and since he was a fan, for me.
Yes. Trust me, you're probably gaining fans at this point. He passed away. I was probably 19 years old at the time. It was in March. I come home from 2 years of playing college football, and at Christmas break, semester change. I switched colleges and came home to a local college. Anyways, I came home and he passed away in March when and then a couple months later, I failed out of school. I mean, it wasn't good for me or my mom, but my older brother was I guess you call him an overachiever. He was a high school valedictorian, perfect SAT, 1600.
Yeah, I had a system like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, your story?
Well, the story is that 10 years later, almost 10 years later, after the death of my father, I come home and I'm married. I have a 1-year-old kid, and then 2 years after that, I get a divorce. Don't want to get
Sorry
into
for all that, sir, but your story.
Of course. What happens is I'm sitting there one night with my mother, and she's telling me the story. She says, I'm sitting in my house. Basically what happened was a man from down the street said that he had seen my father walk into his house. And then he came down to tell my mom that she needs to look into his shirt pocket for a note. She looks into his shirt pocket for a note. She finds the note. My brother goes to college based on the note. It takes more than...
Yep, he's gone. Well, there's a lesson in it for you. You have to get to the point, to your story, before the phones give out. Adam in Canada, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Fine.
So my story involves a friend of mine. He's got a cabin a few streets down from my place in West Washington. we've got my friend's little brother. He's never slept in the room in the cabin, and he's always complained that it was haunted. And nobody believed him because he was the boss clown and always joking around and messing around with the family. So nobody took any notice of him. And
are you talking right into the phone, because it's kind of hard to understand what you're saying?
Sorry, I don't see their phone. So he, the family lives in Hawaii, and they have their place in the summer.
Yes.
In Washington. And they decided to move here full time, decided to sell this little cabin, buy a bigger place, and they decided to sell it back to the family they bought it from.
Yes.
And when they offered it back to the original family, their father said, "I'm too old to look after it, I'll offer it to my kid." So he called up his son, and his son was like, "No, I don't want the cabin, it's haunted." And the father's like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Oh, there used to be an old man in coveralls pointing at the light switch." So the old man was like, "Okay, don't worry, I won't tell to you. I'll tell him no thanks." So he calls back to my friend's dad and he goes, "Sorry, we don't want it." And long story short, my son says the place is haunted. My friend's dad goes, "Oh, that's funny. My son says the place is haunted too." And he goes, "What's wrong?" He goes, "Well, he says that there's an old man pointing at a light switch." He goes, "Oh, okay, I'll ask my son what he says." Sure enough, my friend's little brother says he sees the exact same thing. This is 10 years apart that they're seeing the same ghost.
Well, there's, I guess, pretty good basis for that sort of thing. It is said that ghosts do things repetitively, sometimes again and again and again. Maybe that's some sort of karma that comes upon them, but they're always doing the same thing. Some kind of cycle, some kind of repetitive cycle. Hello there in Canada. Mike, you're on the air.
Oh, wow. How are you, Art?
I'm okay, sir.
I'm a little nervous, so please bear with me. Anyway,
I shall.
In Nova Scotia, Canada, and we live in a fairly old house. Actually, a very old house, 200 or so years old. I live in a town called Annapolis Royal, and it's actually one of the oldest towns in North America. It's actually the location of the most battled spot in North America and all kinds of things like that. Check it out on Wikipedia if you have a minute, and you'll see what I mean. Anyway, I'll get to the point. Basically, when I was a little kid, probably 8 or so, I got this feeling, kind of 2 in the morning, woke up in the middle of the night, and I saw this, I guess to say it politically correctly, an African-American gentleman standing over my bed. I live, like I said, the house is a very old house. We're the last house on a very old dirt road community of probably 50 people.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, like I said, I saw this apparition, ran into my parents' room. They kind of just dismissed it as, a bad dream, and went to put me back to bed. And anyway, years later, I had kind of, asked around about it, of course, told this story, over the years, and to some older people in the community. And anyway, I got to talking to them, and they told me a story about how the people who built my house were actually African American, and they moved here to Canada after the expulsion of the Acadians, if you know your history. Anyway, so basically, we're the last house on this road, like I said, far away from the actual community of Annapolis Royal. So they gave all the black settlers the furthest land from town, of course, because they were black, basically, it was
different time.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, how the story went that I heard was that just because of the fact that they were black and they were doing all right for themselves, some of the white settlers came and hung them, basically. And the house was abandoned for years, and people fixed it up over time. My parents are actually expats. They came up here in the late 70s and rebuilt this house, and with work in progress kind of thing, but hobby farm kind of idea. Anyway, like I said, we've gotten more verification over the years. We got some information from the deed office that verified their name. It was were actually ice.
Okay, well, I don't need the name, but it is a...
No, I mean, it was just a very interesting story. But like I said, I've seen this, saw this apparition, and...
Okay, we've got to run, sir. We're way out of time. But you did see an apparition. No question about that. This is Spooky Matter on Halloween. We're way out of time. My favorite story of the night, I've got to say, was the one that never ended and never got to the point. Something, I'll remember that forever. All right, as many of you may know, because you've been helping us with it, SiriusXM, which is really a great satellite company, mainly delivering, of course, to vehicles, cars and trucks and so forth, has been having quite a bit of trouble with their streaming partners. In fact, to the degree that it makes listening difficult. Many thousands of my listeners came on board when it began, but they've fallen off because of that reason, a very difficult reason, the 1001 error and many others. It's kind of a systemic problem. We do have a monstrous vehicle audience, of course. However, for a caller-driven show like this, speaking only to people on cell phones in moving vehicles is, somewhat difficult. The show also is being pirated. Oh, you have no idea. We are all over the net right now. From YouTube, you'll see my show the next day, to a server in England, for example, that's streaming the show live. All of this, all this pirating. And because of all this, I have asked SiriusXM to alter their normal method of doing business and allow free streaming for everybody. And I say that again, free streaming for everybody from artbell.com. The live show only, of course. All value-added stuff, like on-demand old shows and so forth, would remain with SiriusXM. Now, they say they may have an answer for this by Monday. It's my position that nobody in the world is going to ever cancel a radio in their car or their truck simply because we stream a 4-hour, live stream for 4 days. Now, that may not be their position, of course, but if we get the opportunity to do this streaming, and they are considering it, we will kick some serious butt, pun intended. If not, we may not have a viable situation going forward, but I'm looking forward, knocking on wood, I do have wood here, that Monday we'll see, hopefully, a yes. And that's the situation we're in. So sorry to sort of drop this on you at the last moment, but it is an interesting situation in which longtime listeners have had a very difficult time because of all this error stuff. And we do have a situation where we can stream very effectively, in fact, to virtually everybody. It represents a kind of a new business model, one that we're hoping they'll accept or at least give a try to. And there you have it. That's the announcement that I wanted to make, and that's the current situation. And for those that have helped with the streaming problem, I want to thank you because, we've asked for people to identify the streaming error and then what kind of system you have, what kind of computer, and all the rest of it. So we've pretty well nailed down the fact that it is a continuing problem. And this would be a wonderful solution. Let me repeat that what we're hoping for is free streaming for everybody. It's pretty out there hope, but in fact we may do it. So there you have it. I guess I better get to my young lady here. This is Crystal, of course, and she's the one who always leads us out. So lead us out she will. Again, thank you all very much. Thank you for Spooky Matter, all the spooky stories, even the one that never came to the point, and I'm sure, given the opportunity, never would have ended. Good night, all.
This magical journey will take us on a ride.
That spooky matter. October 31st, from when his show was with Sirius XM. Now, the big question I'm going to have, and I'm going to have to search it for future. You heard there at the end that he was having troubles with the show, the content, and Sirius XM's lack thereof of technology to really make it go. Whether or not the show remained, or that's what prompted the search for the Midnight in the Desert series that we've been airing so often here on the Overnight. But with that, as we have this one final set of battles, we're going to leave you for the evening. As always, please make sure you do like, share, and subscribe. Get us to the goal of 50,000 views, 1,000 subscribers. So Boxy sends us those nice red packages, so we can go ahead and send those out to all of you who like to watch and are great, lovely viewers of our program. Coinbase, Ibotta, and Game.gg, you know the drill. Get your free money, get your Coinbase Learn, your shopping, and your whether you wish to do surveys, videos, or apps to your Android or iPhone device. And until tomorrow, where we'll continue to rock, like, share, and subscribe, be kind to one another, and release the Krakens, as we always continually march here on From Day One. We'll finish out the fights real quick, and then we'll call it a night. In the meantime, one quick moment with Judge Judy.
Now, your complaint alleges that you have a witness.
Yes, ma'am.
And the witness is
The pawn shop, right?
pawn shop owner. Would you stand up? Well, first of all, your name, sir.
My name is Jihad Alayan.
Mr. Alea, on what date did Mr. Goff pawn the ring?
On the 6th of May?
Do you know at what time?
Yeah, approximately 3:30.
In the
p.m.
afternoon?
Yeah.
You gave him $900 in cash?
900 in cash.
On what date did you come home from the hospital?
The 5th.
Okay, let's go back. On what date did you steal the ring?
Probably the 4th or the 3rd, but I didn't sell it yet.
No, you didn't sell it until the 6th.
The 6th.
Now you're going to tell me why you stole the ring.
Because he stole my phone and I paid.
Explain it to me.
All right, I paid in full to AT&T. I'm on his phone plan. Paid in full for a phone.
Okay, you paid to AT&T for a phone.
Yes.
And you were on his plan. How much did you pay to AT&T?
I paid them $450. And I paid him for the first 2 months of my bill. And
When? What 2 months did you pay him for?
I paid him for the month of April and May.
April and May.
And he stole my phone. He took it.
When did he steal your phone? He took it back from you.
Yeah.
After he threw you out of the house?
Yeah.
Which was after he came home from the hospital.
Yes.
And said, I got why Mom threw you out. I'm throwing you out too. You left, and then you went and pawned the ring. But he, at that point, when he threw you out, he took your phone.
Yes.
So far correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Because you didn't want to be responsible for his bill.
Well, he was on my phone. Yes, ma'am.
Because you didn't want to be responsible for his bill.
But I did not plan on pawning the ring yet because he took my phone, so that's when I went.
No! Listen, stupid. You stole the ring either the 3rd or the 4th. That was 2 days before he took your phone.
Okay, but I didn't sell it yet.
Gee, I wonder if maybe my brother is going to take back my phone in 2 days when he gets out of the hospital. So, in the case he takes my phone, I'm going to steal his wife's ring.
Well, he was threatening me to take my phone.
Why would he threaten to take your phone, sir? If
we were
you said if you paid April and May, which you said you paid.
I did pay.
Well, he took your phone in May, so you didn't pay in May.
Oh, you had to pay before the month. I paid it on like the 28th for May. In April, I paid on the March.
You know, there's something to be said for alternative high school.
You have to pay for a month. Okay, I don't care.
Sir, where's the ring?
The ring's been sold.
Well, you understand you're in difficulty because you paid money for a stolen ring.
Right. But he filled out a transaction form, which is the law in probably 50 states.
So
let me ask you this, sir. You're in the pawn business. If the police came in and found this ring, because he filed a police report and found this ring and said, this ring was stolen, it's my ring, what would the police do?
they would make him pay me.
Maybe.
Then prosecute.
No, they would. But they would make you do what with the ring? Police would take it.
Right.
Police would confiscate it as stolen property.
Now, Your Honor, they photograph it. They don't take it anymore. They used to take it as evidence. Now they keep it in our safe because it's actually safer in our vault than it is down there.
Maybe. You don't get to keep it or sell it.
Right, but we have to hold it for 2 weeks, Your Honor.
You don't get to keep it or sell it. Listen, this isn't the first pawn case that I have.
I understand.
You understand that.
Yeah.
So that would basically mean, no. You know you're supposed to do some diligence. So as we said before, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Be kind to one another and release the Krakens. As we march along here from day one, have a great night. Enjoy your night's sleep, and we'll see you tomorrow.